Hey all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today, and as always, we're going to be talking about Harlequins with another game in the Reaper's Wager, but this time against Adeptus Custodes in the Talons of the Emperor detachment. Now we're going to be running my favorite style of list in this detachment so far, and that is that hit and run style. On the Harlequin side of things, we have a Solitaire, we have 3 Troop Masters, one of them with the Reaper's Cowl attached to an 11-man unit of troops, and then 2 other Troop Masters attached to 2 units of 5 troops and 2 Star Weavers. On the Drukhari side of things, we're bringing an Archon in Drazar, both of them attached to a 5-man unit of Incubi inside of 2 Venoms. We have a Beastmaster, 2 units of Haywire Scourges, 2 Ravagers with Dark Lances, and 2 units of 5 Mandrakes. Now we are coming in at 17 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. Now our opponents bring in Adeptus Custodes in the Talons of the Emperor detachment. This detachment is very cool. It allows Custodes to get a reactive move up to 6 inches, which could spell a little bit of trouble for our Harlequin troops and their fusion pistols. But overall, what it does is just give this detachment an added benefit of protection against mortal wounds and psychic attacks all over the board. So they are bringing 3 Blade Champions attached to 3 units of Wardens, 1 unit of Prosecutors, 3 units of Witch Seekers, 2 units of the newly buffed Virtus Praetors, and 2 Custodes Grav Tanks. They're coming in at 11 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. Now we'll be playing Mission C, which is Linchpin, Fog of War, and Tipping Point style deployment on GW Terrain Layout 1. Getting into deployment, we ended up deploying first. So we have a Star Weaver and a Venom, both on this side of the board, ready to push towards our opponent's natural expansion. They have a troop with a Trooper and an Archon with Incubi. We have Mandrakes holding our backfield as well, and a Ravager to poke out wherever it may need to go. It can get lines of sight from this angle, or it can poke out right here and push wherever it really needs to. We ended up putting a unit of Scourge right alongside this wall to jump out and do whatever they may at any point in time if they really needed to as well. And then we have the Solitaire back here as well. We have the Beastmaster and Pack right up here. They get scouts 9 inches, so if we wanted to, we could put them up in this rune, or if we get first turn, we can move them up the board, get another 12 inches of movement, and just block our opponent inside of their home field, which could be very, very beneficial for us, allow us to stage for another turn. That is the action plan as of now. We have another unit of Mandrakes over here, just in case we want to be able to position on an objective or score early points, secondaries or primary perhaps towards the center. But we do not want to bring them so far up that they can get charged into and be used as a springboard for a bunch of Wardens to dig into us later on in the game, or early on in the game. Now we have another Venom and another Star Weaver down here. This Venom has Drazar though, and another Ravager at the bottom. So we are just positioning ourselves to do whatever we needed. Now, something you may not see on the board right now is our big brick of Harlequin troops. In this matchup, not knowing what our opponent's going to do, what side of the board they're really going to dictate a ton of their forces to, I wanted to be able to put them in strategic reserve and rapid ingress them later on to get into fusion pistol range of some of these bigger units, especially the Wardens themselves. So the unit of big Harlequins are in strategic reserve. So is another unit of Scourges. Now on our opponent's side of the board, they ended up putting a unit of Virtus Praetors in reserve, and they also put another unit of Witch Seekers. They have a unit of Prosecutors on their home field objective. They have a unit of Wardens right up here, as far up as they can go in their deployment line. They have a unit of Witch Seekers right here, so they may be able to scout or get area denial, something like that first turn. Another unit of Wardens back here, and then Virtus Praetors right here in the middle to be able to push towards the center objective, or up here a little bit later. The Custodes Grav Tanks are on each flank, getting good lines of sight wherever they may need to go. And then we have another unit of Witch Seekers right here, and the final unit of Wardens. So Our opponent has a lot more units than I'm typically used to going up against in Custodes. I'm interested to see how these bikes are going to shape up. So we end up winning the dice roll and have to go first. We draw recover assets and assassination. We are not going to get assassination, but that is perfectly fine. I'd rather get it out of the way now and get some extra CP in the bank. So essentially what we end up doing is moving the Beastmaster pack with their scout and their move and an advance to block our opponent in their home field objective. The goal of this is to give them just enough space where they have to get out from behind these walls if they want to engage the Beastmaster pack in combat. So we really just kind of want to force them back into their deployment zone. I know they don't have a ton of shooting. Maybe they have enough to bring this down, but I anticipate that they're going to end up needing to get into combat here as well. So these guys move up to block them in. Our opponent can still get out towards their natural expansion, which is perfectly fine because we brought our Starweaver and our Venom out. I'm not worried about the Custodes Grav Tank coming up and shooting down this Venom. That's perfectly fine. If he does that, we're going to move our Scourge up, then we're going to drop our other unit of Scourge, and we're going to bring down that Custodes later on. So that's a perfectly fine trade for us at this point. But essentially what we're doing across the board is just moving up all of our forces so that when our opponent does get rid of this Beastmaster pack and they start pushing, we have an immediate counterpunch before they can do any damage to us. Then to follow it up, we can rapid ingress our big unit of troops wherever they may need to go and clean up whatever units are left over. We're going to leave our Ravagers behind cover, just waiting for some use. There's no need being overly aggressive with everything else, but typically in these games, I like to play a little bit more passive. This is something I'm trying. I keep finding with this detachment that at least this style, the more aggressive I've been, the faster these games are ending and the easier it is for me to start running away with the score. I know Custodes are durable. My goal here, though, is to just hold them off of primary as much as we can for as long as we can. So we end up scoring recover assets. I believe we use this squad of mandrakes to get that job done, and we will move into our opponent's turn. In our opponent's turn, they end up drawing Secure No Man's Land and Marked for Death. So our Marked for Death targets are just right behind this home field objective. We are not worried about any of them getting taken. Our opponent's going to discard it and get themselves a CP. But as far as Secure No Man's Land, they end up advancing and pushing up towards this objective here with the Wardens. And then they advance with the Virtus Praetors, who ended up dropping 4 mortal wounds on the Beastmaster, which was kind of cool. So they're doing something. They get on this midfield objective. They are going to take that from us, but fortunately they aren't doing any damage at this point in time. Beyond this, all of the shooting from these Wardens goes into the Beastmaster pack. They also had a bunch of Witch Seekers with flamethrowers go into this as well. And this Custodes Grav Tank shot a bunch of its shots into here, and they were able to bring down the Beastmaster pack with these unit of Wardens back here as well. So our opponent is starting to move up their forces. We're hoping that this was enough to bring them back. Unfortunately, our opponent being able to kind of move these units out was a little bit more than what we were expecting. I think they ended up rolling a 5 or a 6 for this advance. They rolled a 4 or a 5 for the Virtus Praetors, and then a 5 or a 6 on these guys as well. Their advances were just a little more than what we were expecting, but we walk out of this turn only losing the Beastmaster pack, and our opponent scores 5 on secure. In our turn 2, we end up drawing Defend Stronghold and Overwhelming Force. Both of these we can get very easily. So hopefully we walk out with at least 6 points, if not a few more. What we end up doing is everything that we thought early on. We push up the Harlequin troop and the Starweaver. Go figure. Talons of the Emperor has a really good move here, and they end up using the reactive move and bring them back D6 inches. We end up moving the Solitaire, blitzing all the way across the board to try to get into these Witch Seekers. We move up the Incubi, who actually moved first, and then our opponent waited for the troop to come up to move these guys back afterwards. So unfortunately, we are not going to be in fusion pistol range here. These Custodians are not going to take on a bunch of firepower. In the middle, we end up using Drazar's unit to push into the Virtus Praetors. Then the Harlequin troop that was inside of this Starweaver is going to disembark and advance and try to move block this unit of Custodian Wardens. In the shooting phase, they ended up dropping 2 of them with their fusion pistols. Was hoping that our opponent would have used a CP so that they couldn't interrupt or heroic intervention or whatever it may be later on in the turn, but they didn't fall for it. We did walk away with 2 Wardens down though, so that was pretty good for us. Up top here, the Starweaver and the Venom fired into the Wardens, and we are able to drop 1 here as well. We bring the Scourge out. They fire into the Virtus Praetors, and they're able to bring down 1 with the Ravager that poked its nose out right over here. And then this Ravager also poked its nose out to shoot into, I believe it was these Wardens, and everything bounced. Go figure. Those 4+ invulnerable saves are pretty good sometimes. So in the shooting phase, we brought down 1 Virtus Praetor, 2 Wardens down at the bottom, and 1 Warden up here. No one has popped there once a game. 4+, feel no pain though. Now, moving into the charge phase, this is where things got a little dicey. So originally, the goal was to shoot down some of these Wardens with a fusion pistols and maybe something else. If we can drop 1 or 2, we'd be in good shape. Then we can double up on 1 unit. If our opponent used heroic intervention, of course, they were going to drop 1 of ours, but then we'd force them to use, fallback, shoot, and charge the next turn. If they chose the Harlequins over the Incubi, then it would cost them a little bit more. The goal was to just kind of muck up this section of the battlefield as long as we could and then get some things going. But our opponent ended up using heroic intervention. We fight with Incubi and the Archon. We're able to bring down 3 of the Wardens from the initial squad. Then the Harlequin troop itself is able to bring down another 1, I believe. The Harlequins had the reroll at this point in time, so while using lethals on, I believe, Drazar's unit over here, the Archon's unit, maybe sustained was the right call. They did a good amount of work, but they used their 4+ feel no pain, and it was really hard to bring them down. After this fight, it ended up shifting over here towards Drazar. He ends up killing the Virtus Praetors. And then it shifts back over to the Harlequins, the wager, where we are able to wipe out the Witch Seekers with the Solitaire to reset the wager for us the following turn and make sure that Drukhari is starting with all of the rerolls. But at the end of this, the Custodes were able to clap back, and a couple of them fought into the Harlequin troop. They were only able to bring 1 of them down. We made a good number of saves, but all of the Incubi and the Archon were wiped out pretty handily. We single rolled the Archon's invulnerable save and made it to the final few, but it just was not enough. So we were able to tie up both of these units with the Harlequin troop, but we lost the Incubi in the process, and there is still the remnants of a Warden squad left over. In the Custodes turn, they end up using a stratagem for fallback, shoot, and charge, and get the big unit of untouched Wardens out of combat with the Harlequin troops. They're just going to move up over here. The Blade Champion and the last Warden are going to stay in combat with this Harlequin troop as well. At that time, when they moved, the Solitaire then used their reactive move. It was 2 CP to get back inside of the Starweaver, so we had a little bit of extra protection. They ended up bringing down a unit of Virtus Praetors over here, and then they moved out the Caladius Grav tank towards this side of the board so we can shoot into into any of these. It could have been the Ravager as well, or he can go for the Ravager all the way down here. Beyond this unit of Wardens is still blocked in over here, and the unit of Incubi with Drazar popped back into the Venom behind this wall at the end of the last turn, so we're still holding that section of the board for primary. In the shooting phase, the Virtus Praetors are able to bring down the Starweaver. We failed both of our saves. They wounded with both of theirs. And D6 plus 1 damage is a lot better than the 3 that it used to be. So we lose a Starweaver up here. This Caladius Grav Tank ends up firing into this Starweaver on this objective. At the end of the movement phase, we did rapid ingress this big unit of troops down here and are holding this objective right now. But the Starweaver comes down, and then this Caladius Grav Tank shoots all the way across the board into this Reaver down here and is able to bring that down. So we lost 3 of our transports this turn. This unit ends up firing into the Solitaire with a couple guys that were in range, and they bring him down to 1 wound at the end of it. So they had a pretty good shooting phase. They were able to bring down a little bit more than we were hoping for. It was everything that they shot at, they killed, which is not too great for us. In the charge phase, they're able to bring down the Venom with this unit of Wardens up here. Our Harlequin troops didn't have much of a chance into the Wardens right here. The Blade Champion ends up doing a substantial amount of work, and we only put a couple wounds on another one of the Wardens. Down here, these Wardens ended up wrapping all the way around the backside to this Harlequin troop, and are going to be able to consolidate onto the objective afterwards with one of their guys worth 3 OC, so we're going to lose that objective as well. This was just one of the parts of the game that did not go our way. I thought we had enough distance. I did not think that they would be able to push around the backside of the troops with enough to get onto the objective. I thought I had measured it ahead of time, but as we went to measure it over and over again, I was just wrong. So that was a misplay on my part. We should have held this objective and scored ourselves an extra 5 points the following turn. We'll see if it impacts anything later on in the game. In our turn 3, we end up drawing Cleanse and Engage on all fronts. So we can do both of these. We may only get Baby Engage. Depends what we want to do with this Solitaire. At this moment, we end up moving the Solitaire and advancing all the way up here. We get as far as we possibly can. We end up rolling a 6 on the advance, so this was pretty nice for us. We drop our unit of Scourges over here. We move our other unit of Scourges up here to try to bring down this Caladius Grav Tank, which we are able to do. He took a total of 18 wounds, so pretty decent for us there. Then we're just going to reposition them, hopefully move block our opponent from charging into our home field afterwards. We're able to bring down 2 of the Wardens in shooting with this Ravager as well. They had not popped their Feel No Pain yet, so this is a kind of a godsend for us at this moment. Now down low, we are not going to fall for the reactive move. Again, we end up moving the Incubi and Drazar out of the Venom all the way towards this backfield edge here. Before we move our Harlequin troop, we kind of lock them in, and then we just push our troop up. He does not elect to use the reactive move, and we fire fusion pistols in. I believe we were able to bring down only one of them. Those 4+ invulnerable saves were pretty good, and I believe he activated the Feel No Pain before we got into the fight phase. The Mandrakes back here are just screening out this back edge, and we are going to cleanse on this objective here, and then the Venom is going to cleanse the center objective. So we will be in 3 sections of the board on this turn. Hopefully we could just keep it going. In the charge phase, we end up making all of our charges. This unit of Harlequin troops comes into this unit of Wardens, then Drazar's unit moves into the Caladius Grav Tank and the Witch Seekers afterwards. We were able to bring down the Wardens very handily with our big troop brick. I'm glad to see it without that feel no pain. They're not quite as tough as they seem to be. But then we moved Drazar's unit into the Caladius Grav Tank and the Witch Seekers. Unfortunately, the Caladius is getting some 5-up feel no pains versus devastating wounds. And while Drazar rolled amazingly, they were able to make quite a few of the invulnerable saves and a couple of the feel no pains. So we are only able to bring him down, I believe, 7 wounds. We were able to bring down the other Witch Seeker squad, and the Solitaire was able to make contact with these prosecutors. The goal of all of this was to just start eliminating our opponent's resources. If they don't have enough to play the game, we're going to be able to run away with the score. I don't want to engage every single Warden unit on the board. I know it's just kind of a death sentence for us, so whatever we can do, we can make that happen. I was hoping we were going to be able to bring down the Caladius. I know it was sort of a reach, but you never know. In our opponent's turn 3, they end up drawing Extend Battle Lines and Storm Hostile Objective. So this unit of Wardens that was right up here ends up using its move to get out into range of this Venom. If they can charge it, they're going to get Storm Hostile Objective. We had previously used our Fire and Fade to start move blocking this section of the board. We didn't want this unit of Wardens just crashing into our home field at this point. The Virtus Praetors end up moving up. They put some shots into Scourges, and then they end up bringing down this last unit of Witch Seekers over here behind this terrain. Down low, the Caladius Grav Tank stays in combat, and this final unit of Wardens with 1 solo Warden left and the Blade Champion are going to move down here. In the charge phase, they end up moving the Virtus Praetors into the Scourge. They very easily bring them down, as well as the Venom towards the midfield objective. So they are going to take both of these from us, and we're going to hold this final one over here with our 1 Harlequin troop that died afterwards. In our turn 4, we end up drawing Secure No Man's Land and Area Denial. Both of these are very doable for us if we're able to bring Wardens in the middle. So we end up pushing our Harlequin troop brick up. We get infusion pistol range, all of the good stuff, and he uses the reactive move. Moves them back 6 inches towards our deployment zone. We end up moving our Scourge up here so that we can shoot into the Virtus Praetors or these Wardens and then just fire and fade onto this point and keep our opponent's primary kept in check for the final turn. Drazar is still in combat with the Caladius Grav Tank, and we're going to move the Solitaire in to help finish it off at the end after. Now, with everything in our shooting phase going into these Wardens, we are not able to bring down a single one of them. We end up charging with the Harlequin troop. We get sustained hits with dev wounds. We land a ton of hits, and our opponent makes invulnerable save after invulnerable save. They make a ton of feel no pains, and at the end of it all, the Ravager, the Scourge, I believe 9 Harlequin troops with the Troop Master are only able to bring down one of them and then bring another down to 1 wound remaining. At the end of it all, our opponent ends up wiping out our entire squad of Harlequin troops with a Blade Champion and his 9 attacks, getting a bunch of sustained and then another 10 attacks from the other Wardens. We don't have a single Harlequin troop left on this objective. We will score nothing for area denial. To make things worse, when we brought down the Caladius Grav Tank that was supposed to be an easy kill, it ended up exploding and killing our Solitaire. So this turn just went to shambles for us. In our opponent's turn 4, they end up drawing Recover Assets and Assassination while also taking the secret mission. So they move up these Witch Seekers. They roll awful in their number of flamethrower shots, but are able to bring down 2 or 3 Scourge, and then they're most likely just going to charge them after. The Virtus Praetors end up moving all the way up to get into, put some shots into the Ravager, and then this unit of Wardens ends up just pushing out towards this portion of the board. Most likely, they're going to try to charge the mandrakes on our home field objective. If they don't, that's probably fine because they're going to end up on that objective anyway afterwards. The last and final unit down here, a solo Warden and Blade Champ, end up putting 2 shots into Drazar. He misses his saves after getting, I believe, 3 mortal wounds from the Caladius Grav Tank blowing up. He falls as well. So at the end of the shooting phase, we have a couple Scourge left, the Ravager, and a unit of Mandrakes. In the charge phase, they end up just mopping up on the objectives. They're going to score 5 on assassination and make a 9 or a 10-inch charge into our mandrakes on our home field objective. So we're not even going to score the extra 3 points there and then the 5 points over here. It turned out to be an extra 5-point swing. So in the final turn, doom is upon us. We end up drawing establish locus and extend battle lines. We get rid of extend battle lines for storm hostile objective. There's not much we can do. Our opponent ends up scoring recover assets that they kept from the last turn for 6, and then they get engage on all fronts for 2, giving them 8 secondary points. Now they did use command insertion, and their warlord is right here on our home field objective and are going to score 20 points for the secret mission. We were ahead on the scoreboard this entire game. And outside of this combat right here, where our big brick of Harlequin troops couldn't bring down 3 wardens and a blade champion, I feel like this game would have been ours. But that's Warhammer. And at the end of the game, our opponent hands us the L. This was a great game. Our opponent played it very, very well. My hat's off to him. I would clearly do a few things different. I'd play around the reactive move a little bit more. As it was, it just made our fusion pistols feel like a non-factor. And the Harlequins themselves needing devastating wounds to get things through, anything that has that 5-up or 4-up feel no pain really feels like a lot to chew through. It makes the Harlequins feel a little bit more inefficient than they actually are. Essentially, they were doing nothing but trash damage throughout the entirety of the game. But overall, the army felt great. Movement was phenomenal. Everything functioned well. The symmetry worked. Pain tokens worked. The wager was doing all right. It feels like a really great army. I think I just failed to implement the appropriate action plan, or more so the order of operations in this game. And it's a learning experience. I'll get more and more used to it. This was something I wasn't quite expecting. I am missing fights first in this list just a little bit. We have the Solitaire, but I'm missing, Lilith or the Court of the Archon, something that allows us a little extra defensive capabilities, something that dissuades our opponent from pushing into our board at any point in time. The whole reason that I believed we had to be the aggressors is, 1, we had turn 1. If we allowed our opponent to hole out on us until turn 5, they would have come out and taken every objective without question, and we would have walked away a loser in much worse fashion than we did already. But the other reason is, if we don't push forward and dictate the terms of the fight and make them fight where we want to, they're going to be fighting in our deployment zone for the entirety of the game. The only other thing that I would change is we are a little bit light on OC. I'm loving the Mandrakes. I do wish that we had something with OC2. It wouldn't have made a difference in this game because all the Wardens are OC3. But it would have been nice at some point to maybe be able to sticky an objective. Maybe there's a way to find Cabalites into the list somehow. But overall, if I had to play this game or detachment army in an RTT, I wouldn't change a single thing today. It's been working very, very well for me. But thanks again. I hope you enjoyed. I know we brought a defeat for y'all today, but I really do appreciate it. These losses, I oftentimes learn so much more from. And if you're anything like that, I hope you're able to take something from this video as well. But I look forward to hearing you in the comment section. Please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. Any little bit of help means more than you can possibly imagine. Thanks again. I'll see y'all in the next one.